This is Tempest by Atari, released in October 1981. Programmed by David Thurr, who was infamously the creator the previous year of Missile Command. Now, this game, I would honestly say, is one of the first most innovative video games and arcade classics. But it's also, as you can see, one of the very first so-called vector graphic games, which were initially precursors to like 3D polygon games. You basically have like the somewhat outlined skeleton of like three-dimensional shapes, and so with that you have so-called vector graphics. Another thing you can see is that each level is a little different. Each stage, even though they're real short, is a little different. The enemy patterns are not just slightly different, but the shapes of the little levels are different, and that was a big point of innovation in 1981 as well, because before that, most games didn't feature a lot of major variation in level design. They would basically just up the difficulty, maybe change the enemy attack patterns a little, things like that. But in this game, every single level, even though I'm sure they still cycle, it featured, at the very least, several different level shapes, stage shapes, and each shape definitely changes your strategy a bit on how you're going to attack. Now, I'm pretty sure that this game featured either a rollerball as the controller on the arcade unit, or a dial, because, you know, obviously you have to move your shit. You have to move your ship around in a 3D pattern. This was another innovative little feature in that when you died, when you put another quarter in, the game would allow you to pick back up at whatever difficulty, whatever stage you were kind of on. They let you choose what difficulty you wanted to pick back up at, which was also obviously another innovation. And yeah, as I was saying, obviously, as you see, each shape of the stage, whether it's a cone, it's a circle, it's a weird fucking, it's a square or a rectangle or a weird hexagonal or star shape, triangle, just fucking like a plus symbol, a cross, whatever, you know, you have to watch out for. It changes the way that you have to deal with the onslaught of enemies ever so slightly. And of course you have to deal with those weird little green spikes that come up. Certain enemies will grow these green spikes that you have to deal with. You can see them down there, and those green spiral guys will bring them up, and when they come up, they fucking bring those spikes up with you. And if you hit those spikes, if you don't shoot them all the way so they disappear, you will blow up. That's why it tells you to avoid spikes when you're warping to the next stage. This game used to famously feature in the mid-80s movie Night of the Comet, starring Catherine Mary Stewart. Her character Reggie worked at a movie theater, and she was super good at Tempest. Like, she always had all the high scores on that machine that she always played at the theater. And then she fucking slept through this Night of the Comet that happened, and you know, zombies and shit happened. When she woke up, there was initials DMK. Somebody had taken her top score, and she was pissed. And then at the end of the movie, spoilers, she ran into the guy who had beat her top score, and of course the obvious insinuation was like, Oh, well, maybe this is gonna be, something. He might have got with her sister. I don't fucking remember. But anyways, that was a definite pop culture thing. Like Tempest was a big enough game that it featured in a movie, a high profile movie like Night of the Comet. My own personal history, I actually owned this for our 386 IBM compatible computer in the, I'm gonna say like 94. Let's just ballpark 1994. We bought a disc, like a hard disk, that had a collection of Atari classics on there, and there was like Missile Command. There was another, like one of the first kind of first-person tank. It was a tank game called Battlefield or Battle Tank, whatever. It was a first-person shooter kind of game, very slow, very sluggish, but I enjoyed it for what it was. And Centipede, and of course Tempest, and I used to play them all a lot. I got fairly good at Tempest on that PC version, which was a fairly faithful arcade port. But, it's still fucking hard. I don't know that I ever got super far into it. But it gets like the enemy waves get crazy later on, for sure. Later on, in the early to mid 90s, Atari made an official sequel, although it was oddly named because it came out in like 1994, called Tempest 2000. Instead of Tempest 2, they called it Tempest 2000 because I guess they figured the mid 90s was close enough to the turn of the century. And it was largely the same game. They basically took the vector graphic skeletal look and kind of just filled it in with shaders, and so it has real simple polygons instead of just kind of empty vector graphics. And it was one of the big hits that they released on their last system ever, their last Atari console, the Jaguar. Although later on, after the Jaguar died and Atari officially became like a third party, they ported it to PC and like Sega Saturn and I think Sony PlayStation. But I've never actually gotten to play Tempest 2000. But I don't know how much they really updated the concept. I don't know if it added a lot to the theme. It just was kind of a graphical update as far as I know. They may have updated it, but I've never played it. And well, that's Tempest for you. Tempest, one of the most unique of the golden age of arcade classics, and certainly memorable. It's of course hard as shit, which goes without saying for just about all of those old golden age arcade games. But it is a great game, and if you've never seen Night of the Comet and you want to see Reggie kick ass at it, go watch it. See you next time.
What do I think? I don't know.
What's the use of even trying? You can't get a break.
New Tempest 2000.
What's that?
Only on the Jaguar 64-bit by Atari. Do the math.